vision received was that of blood cells, traveling throughout the body, supplying the much-needed oxygen and other nutrients to the differing members of the body to fulfill their purpose. Once the blood cells are spent, they must return back to the heart to be refilled before being sent out again and fulfill their purpose.
So I guess to close the podcast based on everything that was said.
Ooh,
but also
my eldest is going to close the podcast, guys. Everybody ready?
I'm not really closing it to you guys answering these questions. But I compiled a list of general questions just in experience of being a child, being raised under the principles that you guys have outlined in this book. So some of them have to do explicitly with the book, and some of them maybe not so much, but are biblical principles that you guys kind of had or convictions you may have had. Mm-hmm. So first question is, for those of you who have been listening to the podcast, you know that our parents decided to homeschool us. So on behalf of the children, we would like to ask you, what specifically was the reason or reasons that you all decided to homeschool? Was it based on your past experiences as kids? Lack of funding for private schools? Was it a desire to be close with us? Was it your personal experience, Dad, with the public school system, and you, Mom, as well? We'd like to know, what were your reasons to homeschool
Are you representing all of your siblings?
Yes.
They asked for this
question.
I mean, we've already talked about it. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't at all. It was all on your mom. And so I'm going to let her say how that came about.
I was around a church where there was a lot of families that were homeschooling. And that was the time that I was coming into the faith, and I saw the product of how things were going. And that was years before, right? Because I didn't meet your dad till 7 years after that experience. But when I had begun my new career of teaching, I saw how much it consumed me. And I just told him that I had thought about it a lot when I was pregnant, and I desired to homeschool because rather than me teach and put you guys in a daycare and let someone else take care of you and let someone else raise you and teach you, I thought I could do it. I could.
Let me ask a question in clarification because I don't remember the details. I remember. You can correct me if I'm wrong because my memory is not always accurate, especially over 20 years ago. But if I remember correctly, you were pregnant. The first thing that you told me was you wanted to be home. You didn't want to teach.
Right.
And have someone else taking care of your child.
Yes.
There really wasn't
I told you that. I said that.
But not of homeschooling.
No, but
that didn't come till years later. But the initial was, I just want to be home and I want to raise my own child.
Because that was an answered prayer, by the way. Yeah. The Lord was blessing me, and my vision of my life is that I wanted to do my life biblical. My previous life, I was not. And I had asked the Lord for an opportunity to rebuild. And that was one of the things that was a desire of my heart, and your dad honored and upheld me in that.
But that doesn't address homeschooling, right?
Well, the homeschooling came as it was a topic of conversation.
It became one afterward. And then I thought that she was going to go back to work. I think maybe after the first year with you, maybe when you got pregnant again, which was 18 months later, because John,
yeah.
She then mentioned, and it wasn't a surprise to me, but she then mentioned the idea of homeschooling. And the reason why it wasn't a surprise to me because she's, her bestie friends was Debbie, and Debbie homeschooled. And I knew about Debbie from a distance. They were at her wedding. But I had heard a lot about it because they were, best friends, kind of like a spiritual mom, spiritual big sister, something like that. So it wasn't a surprise to me that she wanted to do it because Debbie had done it with her children.
But also too, I do remember that when she was little, I found some community. I was always able to find things, free community where I took her once a week to the teachers that were doing we sang along and we sat around.
Oh yeah.
And I really enjoyed that.
Yes.
I loved doing that.
Yeah,
and we did little activities with you guys. And then I think we started, we went to a homeschool conference, I think. We went to one in Orlando because we wanted to see.
She was 1 year old?
Well, no, probably 2 or 3.
Oh, okay.
We
so
wanted
you
to
went a
see,
few years
right?
ago. Okay.
We went when she was going to be a pre-K. That's when we started.
Okay.
Because we went to see the curriculum. We wanted to put our hands on it. We wanted to make, wise decisions. I had also taken them. I was very active with them. I took them to VBS. We did a lot of active activities. My part group,
right?
And some of them were talking about homeschooling. That was the other thing. The people that I hung out with, I met one in a lactation thing, and then it was just all of a sudden, I think God just brought together this group of people, and they weren't all Christians, but they all had the desire to raise. We wanted to raise you guys, so it was Miss Jody and Helen and Magda was the core group. There were other people that came in and out. So that was part of it. So
yeah, there was multiple things that kind of happened all at the same time.
A lot of people that were sort of going in that vein also.
And so that helped reinforce her wanting to go in that direction. I said in other podcasts in her testimony that she mentioned it to me, and I was like, are you sure you can do that? Because I thought, yeah, they got to go to school. Homeschooling was very alien to me, very foreign to me. Even at the time, I knew some of the scriptures, but I never... What was I focusing on homeschooling or anything like that? So that, during my Christian upbringing in different Christian schools, that wasn't really emphasized to me. But I was okay with it. Number one, because I trusted the support that she had from Debbie. Mm-hmm. Debbie seemed to be very, very well versed, very knowledgeable. And had a lot of different ideas and seemed to just know a lot. So it wasn't like she was going at it with nobody to help her. She had somebody to help her. Then she started getting involved in the co-ops and the parents getting together. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, okay. Probably my issue was the money. I was like,
and my compromise.
It'd be nice to have a 2-income family here, but... she wants to do this. And I think my concern was, is she going to be able to do it and do it well? Mm. And then when she did, and she did it, I had to go through all of her insecurities and if she's doing it right, if she's doing it well enough. And we had to go through all that. But then when you guys took your standardized test, it was like, yeah, every day you're getting the academics. You're hanging out with friends at the parks. You're going on field trips to this place and that place. And she's finding cheap ways to do it and saving money. I was like, well, sure, go for it. Yeah. And I'll come home and see how everybody's doing. And then we'll go out and play and stuff like that. So it became a complete non-issue to now. At that time, I didn't realize how biblical it was. I did not understand the biblical principles of that is what she's supposed to be doing as a mother, as a homemaker. Raising your kids and training them up in the knowledge of the Lord is not just for her. It's also for me as well. So I felt like, we called it a dean. What do we call it? Of the Our Father's Heart School. What was it that it was called?
You were the principal.
Is that what we said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Principal. But I realized I was like an overseer. I was like, the bishop just overseeing, making sure everything's going. But she was the one actively involved in doing it. And then I would just step in every once in a while, become a part of this project or that project or this field trip or something like that. And so it was just fun. There was nothing really negative involved other than having to hear from other people. Oh, are you sure about that? Are they getting their social relation and all this other stuff? And I'm like... I think they are. I think they're...
Miss Yvette, I believe, went that vein. My cousin Annie, because she was watching up close and personal. And Miss Yvette, when she tested y'all, because she was the one who did the testing, she's like, your children are brilliant. I just remember how impressed she was. And, I didn't do the curriculum she did, which is a more...
She was a school psychologist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She had been a teacher.
She did all the testing for us early on for you guys.
She did the testing. So, yeah, it was... Okay. So next question.
Yes. What were factors in your own life or upbringing that you felt brought difficulties to parenting your children, such as distance or lack of connection with one child over another, or personality expectation clashes? Because, as you guys said multiple times throughout the podcast, there are moments where you guys weren't perfect, or your children, they weren't perfect either. There were difficult stages. So what would you say were factors in your own life or upbringing that may have contributed, I guess, to some of those difficulties, or that you see now, oh, maybe this is why this was happening this way in retrospect?
I can speak for me. My mom was a disciplinarian, and I valued some of the results of her. She was very disciplinarian with me. There was sort of an injustice there with, I was a girl, so expectations were different. But the product was different too for that reason. So that was one. And then another was, I was very insecure. I shifted careers to become a teacher. I really only did about 1.5 years of that. Even though I did the master's program where I was doing a lot of interning and teaching in settings and stuff. So I was he wasn't wrong. I was very insecure in what I was doing with y'all. And I had to have the constant affirmation of, which presented challenges, especially with one of my children was very stubborn. And so I already gave it away. It made things very difficult because he was the child that if you said, don't stand by the tree with the ants, and next you turn around and he's practically climbing the tree full of ants. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, stuff like that. I would let my prior responses kick in. And so I had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of God helping me to overcome that. Just that and feeling insecure with anyone, because we had a lot of people that questioned what we were doing. So I was always having to battle that. And what would always set it or solidify it for me, well, Debbie was always a very strong mentor and voice. But if I was sure that Jay was on the same page with me, then I would be okay. If I wasn't sure because we hadn't had time to talk, and maybe somebody on a car ride downloaded all the reasons why we shouldn't homeschool and he didn't say a word. So then right away I thought, oh my God, he agrees with him. And, did I miss you, the Lord? So that caused all kinds of stuff in me. And then I remember that was a whole day of torture. And then when he got home from work, we had to sit down through a lot of tears on my part. And it was like, no, that this is what we decided and this is what we're going to continue doing. So those were some of the things. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, initially I didn't know what to say, and I think I figured out something. I think living with my mom for the most part obviously shaped my personality or the way that I am in some way. And only seeing my dad in the summers also shaped it. When I think back on the childhood, I think I am hesitant to do new things or to be creative in things. In other words, I see in my son, he always liked to work with his hands. Had to grab everything. That's the way he learned. And I kind of noticed that early on that's just how he learns. It's not he's trying to aggravate me or aggravate everyone. It's just he needs to grab things. He needs to hold them. He needs to touch them. He was very, very excruciatingly tactile. But since I didn't have my father in my life in a greater extent, I didn't have a lot of experiences building things, working with my hands. And I wish I did, because my son was so tactile and he loved making things at Home Depot. I think you guys too.
Yeah, we all did.
And we brought those in and we tried to foster that in him. But I wasn't raised with a high risk mentality. I think it's because I just lacked having someone that would encourage me in that. So I'm more reserved. I think that's why I'm more calculating with probably everything. I count the cost for everything. And I don't mean monetarily. I just mean like, if I'm going to go with it, I'm going to go with everything. But if I don't feel like I can do it, then I don't want to fail. And so not taking that risk, you see, there's sometimes we're bent in a certain way, and sometimes things can be conditioned in us and formed in us. And I think because I never had someone there that could watch me do stuff and watch me be a little bit risky. Like John, I don't think I've ever done this, but John went up on a tree on his own.
Yes.
Freaked mom out. I don't think I ever did something like that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't find me climbing up a tree and being risky like that. Because I didn't have my dad there to kind of watch me where, stereotypically moms are like, oh, be careful. And dads are like, let him fall. He'll learn. I didn't have my dad there for that. He was there, but he was just distant. And so my risk might have been throwing a baseball and catching a baseball. And so I'm comfortable with that because I've experienced that. Or handball, paddleball, off a wall. For some reason oh man, I remember trying to beat my dad in paddleball for years and years and years. He would always beat me. That created a competitive desire in me. I wanted that, but I got that from my uncles. I'm trying to think of where did I get masculine stuff fostered in me. I got it from my uncles as well. I remember always playing with Ish, my cousin Chidio, Speedy. We'd be playing football in the streets and the cars would be our little, run and cut it out and catch a ball or doing it in a parking lot. I remember, Ish threw me a ball. I had to catch it over my head, which was very, a lot of people do. They usually turn around, start running backwards to catch a ball. With my uncle, I learned to run forward, to trust running forward and look back for a ball while still running full speed. So in a parking lot, I did that, caught the ball, and went straight down into the concrete. I scratched up all my forearm. I mean, it was just totally blood, but I held on to the ball. My uncle was like, wow, he was all on me. And so that created sports, athletic, competitive proudness, and not pride, like bad pride, but just, wow, look at what you did, kind of type of thing. So I leaned more toward being involved in sports with all of you guys. That's like a non-issue for me. But if you want me to fix a dishwasher, a dryer, I'm very hesitant to do that. Because number one, I don't want to spend the money to go fix it and then not be able to do it and then have to pay more money to fix what I couldn't do or what I messed up. So I don't like spending more money. I wish, but my son is like that. Now, did I do it with computers? Yeah. I built a computer on my own. No one taught me to do that. I actually ventured out. And so that was like something I can kind of deal with the risk, even though, honestly speaking, I installed a motherboard and had to replace it 3 times because I didn't realize that if you don't put something on the frame of the casing, you could short out the motherboard. So I kept shorting out the motherboard when I put it on because I didn't have this little plastic piece that needed to be between the motherboard and the casing or else it would short it. And so I kept replacing it saying, hey, you sent me a bad motherboard. I want a new one. And fighting with them to get a new motherboard. I got another one and I did. And then I realized through all my readings, what's going on? I was like, oh, I'm shorting it because of the carpet and whatever. So I did that and that was a step out for me. But I noticed there are things like house things. I didn't learn how to change oil in a car until Pastor Well taught me how to change the oil in a car. Drain it, change the oil filter. I didn't learn that from my dad. So hands-on stuff, I didn't really learn from any. Like nobody taught me hands-off stuff. I wish I had someone to teach me hands-off stuff and to be more comfortable with fixing things in the house. I've had to kind of take risk and not electrocute myself by changing a wall outlet or something. I mean, I literally put a timer on the water heater downstairs. That was a big risk for me. And I had to go back and forth to Home Depot. And I was so upset because then I want to make sure I can get this water heater on or I'm going to hear about it. We don't have any water in the house and blah, blah, blah. And same thing happened with this thermostat. I started it at 7 o'clock at night. I don't think I finished till 9 or 10 o'clock at night because it threw me off. No. 7 to 10 o'clock at night. I thought we weren't going to have AC and then I was going to have to hear from her and her because they were in the house and they went to sleep. But I got it going. Thank God. So I'm very hesitant to do the housework like that because I never had someone to teach me and then to make me comfortable with doing that. Mm-hmm. And so because I didn't have that, I think you were kind of linking my experiences with how we raised you. Because I didn't have that. I don't feel like I fostered that in John. But then again, I look at John, I'm like, he didn't need any fostering. He was just like perfectly on his own. He would take risk. He didn't care.
So did you feel like that, because of that experience, lack of it, caused the disconnect in that specific aspect of his life? Because he just had that in him. No, because I don't believe I faulted him for being hands-on in all of that. Our issues came, but our issues came with other things. Gotcha.
He's different. He's not. You and your dad are very organized, and John probably is more like me. They're just going to get done.
Well, but I think our yes, I can say this, and I think we would both agree. I think our biggest issues with John was, I think he was intellectually smarter than all three of you. But he had a lackadaisical attitude that drove me nuts. And he would settle for mediocrity when he could have been up there in the A range. That drove me nuts because when you have a gift and a talent, you use it to its fullest. You don't just settle. And we were constantly battling with him, trying to get him to give me your best paper, give me your best, whatever effort in whatever it is that you're doing. But he had that attitude like, well, if I'm not going to be the best, I'm going to go even slower on that bicycle. And that drove me nuts. Yeah. So it wasn't that he was tactile. I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that he was into technology because I was into technology. It's just not being able to trust him with that technology to do right in using that technology, and then having to go out of my way to make sure that we're secure in the house and we got the things, checking this and that. But no, I didn't fault him for that. It was one of the things that I learned in raising all three of you, that all three of you were different. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't raise you the same. We couldn't expect the same from either one of you. And although in your eyes at the time, you might have thought it was being unfair, no, it was trying to treat you as individuals because you were bent in different ways. You were strong in different ways. You were weak in different ways. And I was actually, I'm proud of where he has gone, where he's able to fix cell phones and laptops and do all of these things. And I think building his own, and I think I had a hand in that because I think he saw me build that computer. So maybe that fostered in him the desire to want to do that, or maybe he already had it, who knows. But I was risky in more athletic things. Mm-hmm. I don't remember climbing trees though. I don't know. I don't remember climbing.
Yeah, part of the reason that question I kind of brought it out is because I think at different moments in time, depending on personality and whatnot, but also stages in life, parents, they may be experiencing it now hearing this podcast, but they might have clashes with certain children, not others, and wonder what they're doing wrong. Yeah. Why? And sometimes it is the personality. Sometimes it is what you had in the past may affect what you can provide then and there. So, for example, for you, you mentioned sports. You were big on sports. And that was one thing that in our house, I could do it, and I did fine in sports, but I knew I wasn't going to go into it in college. You bonded so much with Deborah over sports because she was the one who was super athletically inclined, and that drive to catch up to us to play with the older kids was in her. And then one of the things where you didn't connect so well with John was through sports because John was just not.
He does it.
Well, John took it very lackadaisical, whereas you and Deborah were very serious. When you got into it, you were serious and you excelled. Where John was just like, he would be just hanging out with the other boys and they'd be laughing and cutting up and they wouldn't be paying attention. They wouldn't practice and they wouldn't... To where it got to the point where like, okay, I'm going to work with who wants to work with. If you just want to just, I don't know, frolic around with the guys and, you know, hit each other and just be, you know, goofy. Yes. Goofy. Fine. And then I wouldn't put that on him. I don't think I did. I may have tried to early on, but I realized at some point that it's not his thing.
Right.
And that's fine.
And that being said,
and that's fine.
With him, you connected with I'm glad you brought up the electronics because you guys did bond over electronics. Mm-hmm. That was your thing. Yeah. And then Deborah and I were not at all with that. And then with Mom, also had similar moments where Mom may have bonded with certain, like, for example, I know for me, I was not a girly girl. I know, and I am so sorry for this, but I gave Mom such a hard time shopping for me because I was not.
I wasn't trying to make you a girly girl. I was just trying to get you to get clothes.
Right, but for example,
well, girly girl meaning usually girly girls love to go shopping. She doesn't love to go shopping at all. She's like me. She wants to go in for one thing, get the one thing, get out. That's it.
She would just sit down on the floor and refuse to even look at anything. And it's like, oh my God. You know, it's like, yeah, that was
I bring that up because we can laugh about this now, recognizing that these were stages and we've moved past them for the most part. And if there's anything that we had to address later on, we have. Mm-hmm. But it's just as an example for anyone listening, because they might look at us and see the product and think, wow, look at how great, how perfect. And we're like,
no.
Well,
we had a lot of
issues. Felt the same way with our previous pastor and his family.
We did. We would watch.
We were like, wow, they're just like
perfect,
pristine,
kids.
And blah blah blah. But then as we got to walk with them and learn, it was like, oh, okay, so they do struggle through stuff, and they do have to wrestle with their kids about certain things and da da da.
Moms,
so it's not all.
I have told moms, if you have any doubts, call me, because I'm pretty transparent, and I'm not going to tell you that everything was perfect. I remember one time when I went to go get a Cuban bread, and I went in and I told you guys to wait in the car, and then all of a sudden you and Deborah decided you need to go to the bathroom, but you reassured me that John was waiting in the car because I left the car on, and then John decided he didn't want to wait in the car by himself, so he locked the door and locked us out of the car. And I was so frustrated. I was so mad because then we had to call your father to work because this was in the middle of the day to come and unlock us out of the car. And I remember talking to Miss Althea. I was talking to on the way home because I was furious. I was fuming. I wanted to kill y'all.
Probably as fuming as I was when John left the water on in this house.
And then she started laughing. She goes, "Oh, I remember when one of my children, I won't say the name to uncover him, drove past the place. He drove us off the side of the hill. When he was driving, and she said, I was going, stop. And then I'm flying in the car and I'm like, okay, that's not as bad as locking the keys in the car. But, that moment of a mom or that I thought was like perfect, kind of letting me know, no, we had our moments in our house, or, remembering, I think one time I came to visit that family and one of the children had driven the car through the garage. She hit the accelerator instead of the brake. And they had just made this new addition to the house, and all of that got wrecked. And, it was a big thing, and they were describing how the whole reaction of the parents were and laughing about it after the fact. But all those things keep it real. So that is a good question, because there are challenges, and we could do everything right by the book, raising you the way the Bible says. Of course, we're going to have our little problems because we're not perfect. And things are not going to turn out very good. But what I always say is we have our brothers and sisters that have walked this, the ones that are yet to walk this, and we have our relationship with God who calls us back to him. When we feel like we have messed up, how many people in the Bible do we not see? What did they do? The ones that were after God's heart, they cried out to the Lord. So that is always our default. But yes, it can be discouraging when we have, and I tell my friends or moms, I had 3 strong-willed children. My children were, all 3 of you were very strong-willed in your own way. You were stubborn in your own way. Do you remember when somebody did something here and it took them a whole day to fess up, to putting the lock on the garage and you breaking that door?
Whole day.
Or a night.
It took a whole trip to church.
Right, and back, and the silence, and everyone, you better tell, and whatever, and all that was excruciatingly painful. Or there were times when nobody ever confessed to certain things that happened in this house.
I still have a stain in that carpet over there that no one has fessed up to. And I know someone dropped some Clorox or something on the carpet because it's white.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be red.
So we have those moments and that our own way of being are bent, but we balance, husband and wife balance each other out. Hopefully that's, if you follow the Lord in his leading and you are, you're equally yoked, that is one of the challenges that you can overcome together. And you'll still have adversity with each other, but iron sharpening iron is not fun, but it's better when you know that God called you to that relationship, and then we can both come to the same place, the same conclusion on our children.
Thus is the ministry of our Father's heart through us. Our utmost desire is to be in the Father's heart, to know the Father's heart, and express the Father's heart to you. If you appreciate listening to this podcast and were blessed, pass it along to someone else by text, email, or word of mouth in the hopes that they might be positively impacted as you were. If you are interested in supporting our efforts, we would ask you to consider the following. 1, pray for us. 2, leave a positive rating or review with whomever you listen to our podcast with. And 3, if you desire to contribute monetarily, you can do so at paypal.me/JBenJesus or Cash App $JBenJesus or Venmo JBenJesus. That's JBenJesus. God bless.